So for any of my fellow Star Trek fans, I found out I am a data person. And this is the first part of our data literacy series. We have 4 workshops, 4 or 5 workshops, I'm honestly not entirely clear, each progressing in detail and depth on how to relate to data. Tamika, before I start, is that glare really bad? There's I think there's a switch up front I can flip for you that'll just turn these front lights off.
It's good.
Okay. Okay.
We don't, oh, I was gonna say, we don't see glare here.
No, I didn't think you're seeing glare. I'm just checking with Tamika in the room. But data is one of those strange things. I never considered myself a data person. My orientation towards my work is rhetorical criticism, cultural criticism. So it's primarily interpretive work. Sometimes I'm asked if if that's qualitative research. I point out, no, it really isn't. Qualitative research is still a social science form of research. What I do is humanities work. It's interpretation and criticism. That's not observation in the qualitative sense. So I've often thought I'm not much of a data person. But a couple of years ago, as the Achieving the Dream work was getting going here at Reynolds, Dr. Dwyer, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, asked me to join the data team as part of the ATD work. And I sent back an email that was sort of like, are you nuts? Do you know what I do? It was maybe a little more professional than that, but that was the gist of it. And she assured me that it was those very reasons, my interpretive work, my skills in communication, that was the very reason why she wanted me on the team, that I didn't need to I didn't need to be interpreting data. I didn't need a lot of statistical literacy. There were other members of the team for that, and I was there for a reason. And she included this quote, "Everyone is a data person," and she puts that in quotes. I didn't quite know what it meant until I got started with the work. And what happened was I went to our first Achieving the Dream conference, Dream, in 2023, and I was able to go to a workshop hosted by Amelia Parnell. "You Are a Data Person" was the title of the workshop, and it is based on her book of the same title. And she insists everyone on a college campus is a data person. We may all just have different data personalities. I didn't really like the term personalities. I know you're a psychologist. I don't know how you feel about data personalities. I prefer to think of it as data relationships, how we relate to data in the world. Before I get going any further, I do want to point out this book is available in our library. It's in the library as a hard copy. It's in the library as we have the ebook available. I'm going to put the link from the library right into the chat. And Tamika, that should be recorded and available in the recording if you want to access it another time. But that is there and available for anyone. I have a copy in my office, and I can tell you that if you asked Dr. Dwyer if she would buy you a copy, she'd be more than happy to. So this is how this works, and this is what today's workshop is about, is these data personalities or these data relationships. Where I want to begin is with a simple question, and since it's only the 3 of us, let's take some time with this. What are some ways you've used data to make decisions this? What's some kinds of data that you've engaged with this week?
For me, Robin, I've had to decide if I'm going to add additional sections for 7 week 2. So I'm looking at data. I'm also looking at what classes for next term and looking at past data to see how many sections, what formats, the timing, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Very similar for myself, learning a lot more about those types of things, like what was just stated, to try to prepare for spring. And also the students, looking at participation, looking at attendance, using that to determine if I will be needing to send out early warnings, just looking at where they are, how they're progressing, how some of them may not be progressing, and being able to report them.
Those are some of the obvious ways that we use data at work here. I am so gratefully not a program head anymore. But I am looking at things like early alerts. How are my students doing? But we also relate to data in other ways in our lives too. Simple things like checking the weather report, right? And it's not just looking at the weather. We make decisions based on that. How will this weather affect my commute? What kind of clothes do I need to wear? I love to cook. Cooking is my hobby. It's my peace. It's my meditation. I love to cook. And so for me, some of the most important data in my life is my spice rack. Do I have enough of a given spice or a given herb or the right amount of ingredients? Last night I was getting ready to start cooking and I realized I forgot to bring home potatoes. I have to run back out at the last minute and buy some potatoes. This is a way we live with data as well, and a way that we work with it. So when we're thinking about these data relationships or personalities, think beyond work. How do I interact with data? And what Parnell comes up with, this identity, data identity framework, has these 6 components to it, or 6 kinds of relationships. And again, this information was included in the links on the calendar. I also realized at some point I'm going to have to send out the sign-in for everybody. There is a sign-in link I need to get out to everyone. The 6 personalities or the framework of these personalities is how we relate to data through curiosity and inquiry, communication and consultation, strategy and planning, research and analysis, campus context, and industry context. And what the 2 of you described was a data identity that would be classified as campus context, right? Current issues going on, trends in the institution, particularly around your programs, the programs that you run and you need to be aware of. You may also be aware of industry context, not just around higher education, but around the industries that your programs are geared towards. So what's going on in the world of addiction counseling and human services, and how that impacts the courses you offer the students that you're teaching. That can play into things as well. What Parnell goes on to do, and again, some of the attached files with this in the calendar link should include 2 chapters from her book, chapters 2 and 7, that you can download and print out. What they include is much more detail about each of these data personalities. And what's going on, a little bit about our campus context beyond the programs, and why assessing this your data personality and understanding what you bring to your relationship with data is important, is that here at Reynolds, we're part of the Achieving the Dream Network, which is a data-driven approach to solving problems on campus, particularly about retention and completion. And we have keyed in on something we're calling the early momentum metrics, Gateway Math and Gateway English in particular, as areas where our own data shows us that our students, when they complete these 2 courses in the first 12 months of college, the first 2 semesters, or 2 semesters plus summer really, that they are more likely to complete their programs, their certificates, their degrees, that they're more likely to reach completion. But we don't have enough students doing that. They're putting off math, they're putting off English, because they feel those are weaknesses or their courses they're not as excited to take. And we're using data to drive decisions around this. Because I work in the world of rhetoric and rhetorical criticism, there's a term called the rhetorical situation by Lloyd Bitzer. And with Bitzer, he says that there's 3 components to a rhetorical situation. An exigence, something has happened that demands a response. There's a population that's affected by this exigence. And there is a set of constraints. And that in a given rhetorical situation, you have to work within the constraints, reach your audience or population, and address the exigence. We know that retention and enrollment has been a concern at Reynolds for a number of years, even before the pandemic. But the pandemic just pushed everything into high gear. And we are seeing some positive outcomes this year of work that's been going on over the past really 12 to 18 months. But most of that is driven by data. And so if you as a program head want to make a change to your program, alter the requirements, you're going to go to the committee, the curriculum committee and all of that, having data to back up your decisions is going to be more and more critical. It is the evidence that is being called for in the current rhetorical situation at Reynolds. So this is part of what makes this data literacy series so important. We're using data here at Reynolds in such a way that without it, you may struggle to get a point across, to persuade leadership to address needs that your program has. In chapter 7 of Parnell's book, there is a data literacy assessment or a data personality assessment. It's a somewhat simplified version of this chart, but I've also had this chart included in the documents through CEDL. So we can get this chart to you if you'd like. Essentially, the exercise here is to go through the components of each of these 6 data personalities and try to determine whether you feel that it's an area where you have a lot of strength, you're developing the strength, or it's sort of an emerging strength, which is, I think, Parnell's nice way of saying a weakness. Something you don't feel a great deal of confidence about. When I went through this, I was pretty sure, given my training, that communication and consultation was gonna come up as a strength for me. And sure enough, it did. I'm good at listening and understanding descriptions of data. I am good at communicating data to other audiences once I understand it. But I also found that research and analysis was really an emerging area for me. It was something I don't have a lot of strength in. It was campus context is something I kind of struggle with. I'm very good at sort of, here's my little thing. But once, this is one of my weaknesses as a program head, was I'm just not able to, with the liberal arts, we had 6 different fields under one program. I'm not sure how to think about art. I don't do that. I do communication studies. So it was difficult for me. Industry context, somewhat. I can do that. That came as developing. Strategy and planning came up as developing for me. I thought it would be stronger, but I'm good with strategy, but not necessarily a data-driven strategy. And so that came up as developing for me. What was, hello? Are you here for data?
Oh, I was here just to make sure you got set up.
Oh, we're all set up. We're going. Yep. And what I found out was that curiosity and inquiry was another big strength for me, and that it complemented the communication piece. And having gone through that workshop, I found out why Dr. Dwyer said what she said about my perspective on the team. Because I'm now working with Mel Boynton and Tim Merrill, who are both heavily involved in institutional research. I get them to explain the numbers to me, because I don't understand what I'm looking at. And they try to show me pie charts and bar graphs and line graphs, and they look like lines and bars and pies. They don't tend to look like people to me. But once I'm able to understand it, two things happen. One, I can ask a lot of questions. What does this mean? Why is it this way? Are we really getting the information we think we're getting from the data? Or is there overlap or some variable we haven't accounted for? And I can push the folks who are more strategy oriented, more analysis and research oriented. I can help them find ways to articulate what it is that they have found so that it matters. Looking at our early momentum metrics that we're working on, we're working closely with the math program and the English program. Now, the math folks, as you might imagine, are very comfortable with data. Most of them. But when we get to the English program, there's a sense among the humanities faculty, myself included, that data is somehow cold. That it lacks a human touch. And it's been critical to come to meetings with the English faculty, for me to be there with Mel, with Tim, to give the human perspective. And to make sure that they understand, that the English faculty understand, they're being heard and listened to. There was a particular English faculty member who I had really hoped was going to come to today's workshop, and I hope that you're at least watching the recording if you know who you are. But we had a meeting, we looked at the various dashboards, and Mel will be leading a workshop on how to use the dashboards later in the term. We were looking at dashboards and talking about early momentum metrics. And a particular faculty member raised her hand and asked, and it almost felt like pushing on the coldness of the data. When we said students who complete Gateway English and Gateway Math in their first 12 months of college, within their first 24 credits, is really what we were after. And doing those 24 credits within 12 months, they tend to graduate more. They complete their programs. They're much more likely to complete their programs. And she asked, is it that students who complete Gateway English and Gateway Math and 24 credits in the first 12 months, is it that they are more likely to complete their program because of those things, or is it more likely that because they're able to take 24 credits in 12 months, which is to say a full-time student, essentially,
That's a good question.
is that not what makes them more likely to complete? And that was a fantastic question. And it really is a fantastic question. That's what I mean by curiosity and inquiry in terms of a relationship to data. Somebody has to ask that hard question. That's an important question for us. And the response to that question turned out to be, first of all, we're not going to get everybody. The goal is not 100%. It'd be wonderful if it was, but the goal is improvement from where we've been, and to see a steady improvement in our retention and completion rates. This is a way to do that. But the question was a worthwhile question. And it's exactly the kind of thing that indicates that that individual is approaching data from a point of curiosity and inquiry. So I'd love to answer questions we have. I can keep going and go through more details about each of these areas. But I want to stop for a moment and just see, does anybody have any questions or comments, thoughts that you want to share? If not, I can prompt some discussion, but what are some things that you'd like to ask more about? Robin, I'm curious, what program do you lead?
Business programs.
Okay.
So marketing, business, economics, finance, things like that.
Okay. So you're probably pretty solid on the research and analysis piece, I would suspect, if that's your training as well.
Yeah, it's a hobby and it's fun
Okay.
to look at data in weird and twisted ways. So I like being able to have access to that data. Sometimes it's a little hard to get the information that I need, though, because I'm not sure what to look at to get the answers I need. So Tim has been very helpful in that.
Right. and that sounds like it could be the campus context as more of a emerging or developing area, right? What do I need to get there?
Exactly. And it's also along the lines of, wouldn't it be cool to know, and then fill in the blank? And it may have nothing to do with what I need to know for the program, and more along the lines of, I'm a nosy person who likes to look at data in weird ways.
Right.
So I have to sort of draw the line with, okay, I'm not going to bug too many people because I want to know this kind of thing.
What about you, Tamika?
I probably, from a higher ed perspective, I place myself off top in the emerging area. Because
Okay,
a lot I'm still learning. And
sure.
really, my sole purpose for wanting to do this series is because I remember at convocation all the talk about these the program health,
Yeah.
and it scared me because I'm like, what is that? And how do you report on that? I'm not a statistics driven
Mm-hmm.
person, so yeah, so that's really why I'm here. In large part, if I had to identify with anything on this map, I'd be in the curiosity and inquiry.
Okay,
I question a lot, and maybe that's due to my background.
sure.
So when you gave the example of the English professor that, raised that question, before you even said it, that's what was going through my mind too. Well, what types of students? And how are we measuring this? And are we looking at all the different dynamics? And not because everybody's story is different. No two people's student stories are the same. So I definitely would put myself there, but with everything else, honestly, I just developing. And yeah, just trying to figure out how to utilize this to do part of my job. Because I'm one of those people too, you can kind of show me numbers, give me statistics all day long, but I wouldn't really know how to know what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's answering your question exactly.
Sure.
But
No,
yeah. So yeah.
well, each of these personalities or identity types offer some Parnell goes into some more detail about how each of these work. The curiosity and inquiry piece, right? We're looking for clarity. Explain it to me. It's unclear. What does that mean exactly? When we were looking at early momentum metrics and trying to decide, and it really came to the data team to make the call, what early momentum metrics is the college going to look at? And I should call out that Ramsey O'Calley and Kara are also on the team. Sean Terrell is also on the team, and so it was all of us working together to look at these early momentum metrics, and we're seeing that really one of the best of the early momentum metrics was 12 credits, completing 12 credits in the first semester, or 12 credits within 6 months. And that more accurately predicted the outcome that we wanted to achieve than 24 credits in 12 months, over a year. But I'm there with my curiosity and inquiry, and I said, if we're going to go after Gateway English and we're gonna go after Gateway Math, and we're gonna try to get students to take these as two of the first classes they take. And they do that. How do we know whether it's that's 6 of 12 credits right there. That's half of what we're measuring. How do we know what's working towards retention and completion? Is it the work we're doing with Gateway English and Gateway Math, or is it the 12 credits? Are they contaminating each other? And that led to further discussion, because we were almost set on 12 credits. And it was further discussion when we realized if we do 24 credits and we're starting to offer more 7-week courses, a student can take 1 or 2 7-week classes, fall, 7-week 1, 7-week 2, fall, 7-week 1, 7-week 2, spring, and 7 weeks in the summer. And now it really is possible to take 24 credits in 12 months without having to do more than 2 classes at a time. They're intense, it's a lot of work, there's no question, but it's a much more achievable goal than asking a student to take 4 or 5 15-week classes to try to get there. You can do this part-time now and still get to 24 or 30 credits in a year and be a full-time student part-time. So we made that call partly based on this approach of curiosity and inquiry, asking those questions, looking at the historical context, right? Not just what does the data tell me right now, but what is our past experiences? Have we tried these things before? And if they failed, why have they failed? And looking into stakeholder impact. It's another one of those places where, as a humanities scholar, I see the word stakeholder, I find it a little cold, a little less human. But the curiosity and inquiry identity is going to be more human driven. So I'm going to look at who are the people that are impacted by this data, what's the human impact. Research and analysis folks are going to be more familiar with the methodologies of data analysis and data collection. They have the technical expertise. They're working with the spreadsheets and generating the visual graphics to help folks like myself understand it, and the computations that are involved. Another question that we've been thinking about is if that previous slide about college students struggling with math, if that's a national trend, then we're likely to see then we're going into a headwind with Gateway Math. We're asking our faculty to improve outcomes, students getting a C or better in their first try at Gateway Math. That's going against a major national trend. So I asked, from the point of view of inquiry, to Mel, who's our research and analysis personality, if we are not seeing the increase we want to see, but our decrease is less than the national trend, right? We're doing better than average. Can we declare victory, right? Have we we're still improving the outcome compared to how everyone else is doing on average. And that came down to, Mel's sort of like, I think I can do that calculation. if we know what the averages are, yes, the computation to make that happen is a doable thing. We can say, you know what? As compared to the national average, we are seeing increase in completion. So that's how research and analysis identities tend to work. The communication and consultation piece, how is the data delivered? Right? Are we using a lot of graphics? Are we using examples and stories? Who is the audience? How is the audience going to interpret the data? How do we want the audience to interpret not just the data in terms of the numbers, but the information that data is backing up? That what's useful there? And follow up, making sure there's a communication between the other data personality types and the general audience that is trying to get that data and understand it and make it useful. The campus context piece, and this is something, again, I struggled with, and it helped clarify why program head wasn't the best fit for me. Being aware of student information, the enrollment numbers, the demographics, various programs and initiatives here at Reynolds, identifying how the program fits into the strategic plan of the college and the broader campus mission. Robin, I also work with a group called the Humphrey Fellows, and I'm mentioning it because Tamika and I spoke about it. It's a group of international professionals that actually work at, they do a fellowship for a year at VCU, but the State Department that gives them the grant, the Humphreys program grant, requires that they have to share them with a partner institution that normally doesn't get access to that kind of thing. So we're the partner institution, and doing these kinds of relationships are easier for me than campus context, right? But I also know that Tamika wanted to know more about this initiative. You're both here because you're watching the CEDL emails and you're looking for that information. Or someone, maybe a dean, reached out and said, hey, this would be helpful for you as program heads. So keeping, those initiatives in mind, that's a big strength of campus context. And so I would say that even though you're new to this is probably a strength. You're still learning the student information. You're still learning what the programs and initiatives are. But you seem to pick up on these are the things I need to know right away. So that tells me it's a data personality or a relationship to that kind of data. And so I would actually give you that as a strength.
Thank you, because I have not felt very strong in some of these areas. So I'll take that.
Yeah, if you're drawn to that, for me, honestly, it really was very difficult for me to keep an eye on the programs and the initiatives and the strategic plan. And the dean is coming to me with, how does this fit with the strategic plan? And I'm like, I got to look at the strategic plan again. You're probably the type who's gonna get that in your head pretty quickly and be able to relate information to it. That just isn't me. So it seems to me that, yeah, that this is a strength. Remember, it's not about, these are relationships to data. how we're drawn to data and the kind of data we're drawn to. So it's less about what I know here now about this particular set of data, as more, how do I relate to data? And I would bet, knowing a little bit about your professional background as well, industry context is probably going to be strong or
Yeah.
developing for you.
Yeah, I would agree with that because of background.
Yeah, you're aware of the sector that you're in, the where, the jobs that that your students in your program are looking to get, requires some of this knowledge. And so a strong orientation to industry context and the data around the industry is also a real asset to have if that's a strong area. It's and then the strategy and planning as the last of the data identities. How various roles in the college align, right? Who answers to who, and how does that work? Monitoring progress in these key areas, these momentum metrics, for the students maybe within your program or your advisees. What resources are allocated where, and how much are those resources allocated? There was pushback from various sectors of the faculty at the idea of paying students to take classes. We're giving, I hope you've all heard by now, $250 for English, $250 for math, if you do it in your first 2 semesters. That's funded by a very specific chunk of change from a grant. That's not resources being taken from here and put over here. This is money coming from outside of the college only for that purpose. And but when we faculty here, they're giving students how much for what? This question, it takes someone with a strength in strategy and planning to be able to understand and explain the resource allocation makes sense, even if it doesn't quite look that way from, say, the perspective of curiosity and inquiry. So that is that piece as well.
I thought that when I heard it at convocation, I thought this is but I guess there's data or evidence to support that, I guess.
Actually,
Is there?
the giving money to students to take classes? Not really. We're trying it. It's new. It's a radical new idea, and we're gonna give it a shot and see if it works.
And will that lead to what the goal with the overarching goal we're trying to achieve?
This is what we want to find out. So
will they take the classes?
Will they take the
Pass
classes?
them, get the money.
Will that
Yeah.
incentivize students to take those classes earlier? The data that we do have says if they take the classes early, they're more likely to complete the program. The question is the money going to help encourage them to take the class early and help encourage them to do more to pass it? So we're now wondering, is there going to be an increase in traffic in Math Central for gateway math classes, right? If I don't get a C or better, I don't get the money. So I look like I may not get a C or better, I'm gonna go get tutoring. Is there gonna be an increase in traffic in the writing center? Because I need a C or better in English 111. It doesn't look like I'm gonna get a C or better in English 111. I better go get my butt to the writing center. So we are collecting data on this, and we're excited to analyze it, because if it works, it's gonna be a big deal for the other Achieving the Dream colleges. And we're talking about colleges across the country, and a number of international colleges and universities have joined the network as well. This is something that, if it's the whole early momentum metrics and tracking them and all of that, we pick the early momentum metrics, what's important to us, what are our own struggles, what's our unique student population. But the idea of look for early momentum metrics, things like that, that's part of the ATD project and program that they give us. And this is gonna could become a critical part of what ATD suggests, and could launch a trend in community colleges if it works. That's why we were able to get a grant for it, because it seemed like a cool idea to try. And we have the ability to try these things. We'll see. See how it
It'll be
works.
interesting to see how it all, and should it not work as expected, hopefully it will, but should it not, is this like a pilot test, or will we say, well, it didn't produce the results that we wanted,
Mhm.
so now we're not offering that incentive?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, we probably won't continue. What we'll probably do, because we really want it to work,
Yeah.
because it'll look so good for us if
Right.
it does, is we'll look at ways to tweak it before we abandon it. But if it works or if it doesn't work, we're prepared to share that data and to discuss those results and to move forward with that. So it would move forward with sharing the results of this experiment with the wider world of higher education.
I'm curious to see. Hopefully it does work.
I hope so.
I really do, and I'm new as full-time faculty, but I can already see how a lot of students, they really push those classes to the back. They don't want to take them.
They don't.
I guess out of fear, I'm not sure what the reasons are, and that might be a study all within itself.
And actually we do know it's fear.
Yes.
It's in the sense of insecurity, maybe a better word than fear. People who see themselves, I'm not a math person, right? I hate math. And it's because they've had bad experiences with math. Maybe they haven't gotten the kind of individualized attention they need, or the tutoring they need, or they haven't been told where to go for extra help. Same with writing. I'm not a good writer, and it may be because no one's worked with them on their writing, helped them to improve their writing. Maybe I don't know, or they're writing tutors or writing studio at a high school, probably not. So you may not have had the opportunity, but by the time they get here, they're so convinced that they can't write or they can't handle math that they push it and hope that it'll just go away, that they won't have to face the requirement.
And this has nothing to do, I guess, with the data personalities and everything we're talking about. This is really, really probably left field, but I'm curious, is there a way to have those courses as prerequisites, that you're mandated to take them early?
There
Can
are,
you not do that? Can the college not do that?
it's more of a policy question than I'm,
Okay, yeah.
there are courses where with prerequisites, English 111, English 112 are prerequisites that I see. Part of the problem is we only have them for 60 credits. If you put too many prerequisites on the courses, they wind up where there's only 3 classes they can take their first semester, and they can't even get to 15 credits because everything's gonna be,
Yeah.
they're gonna be too many prerequisites to start those classes. I would love to have a prerequisite of English 111 on my Intro to Communication course and Intro to Public Speaking course, because then I don't have to worry about teaching the research skills. But that's kind of counterproductive. So my enrollment would just fall through the floor. So it becomes an issue there as well, yeah. And another point about these identities, these data identities, she does refer to them as identity types, as, right, strong, developing, and emerging. There's movement allowed there. It's not something you're set with that can't change. I have always struggled with numbers and statistics. I'm actually quite good at arithmetic. I have no problem when I'm sitting there doing algebra and even some calculus. Where I run into trouble is statistics, which is the key to data analysis. And I've looked into why, and I have a hunch. But it also means I could take statistics here for free because I'm faculty, I'm an employee. And I can increase, I can come from emerging to maybe developing on the analysis piece, where I do have some more facility with that. I do have a deeper understanding of it. And I can improve my ability to relate to data in that way. I could work on the campus context piece. That could be something that I could bolster. I'd say it's maybe on the border between emerging and developing. But those are things where we can move, and you can do this too. Think about opportunities for professional development that you can put on your APDO that can also help you with your data literacy. I just want to end by pointing out that the second part of the data literacy series is on October 3rd with our colleague Sunita Luthar. Her piece is on Just Ask Your Students. And it's about collecting data in your classes to help impact your teaching and your pedagogy. So she's going to share strategies on data collection among various ways to collect data directly from students in your classes, and how to use that to make decisions and make changes. But again, I recommend reading at minimum those 2 chapters from Parnell's book, chapter 2 and chapter 7, and I've got them as a PDF. You can access them through CEDL. Taking a look at those 2 chapters, assessing your data personality or your data relationship, and then with that knowledge going into Sunita's workshop with more than just how to collect data, but what kind of data am I going to find most useful for me to make decisions in my classes? With that, Robin, do you have any last questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
A lot of more questions, probably for you and your team, will come when it comes to these progress health reports.
Yes, Tim is there.
Mhm.
And, I will give Tim a lot of credit because I first worked with Tim when I was a program head, and program health was just a tedious exercise. I couldn't figure out for the life of me why we were doing this. All of the data he wanted, all of the information he wanted me to present was really a matter of going to one website, copy, paste, go here, copy, paste, do a little math to figure, add some credits up and things like that, and copy and paste. And Tim has worked very hard at trying to get the program health process to actually be about the program, not just of checking a bunch of boxes to make sure we've done it, but really to assess our programs and keep them dynamic. His heart's in the right place on this, so he really wants to make it worthwhile. One of the significant, and Robin, this may impact you. I don't know what the proportion of transfer students versus career students in human services is, but for the transfer students, I explained to Tim, I was liberal arts program head. The whole point of the liberal arts program is to get your general education requirements out of the way. So when you transfer to VCU, most likely, or some other university, your gen eds are out of the way and you can focus on your major. And what I told Tim is that for me, I don't know if my program is doing what it needs to do unless I know, are my students graduating with bachelor's degrees after they transfer? Are they getting to a university and are they stronger than the students who have been at that university for the first 2 years? Are they weaker? That's the only way I'm going to know if I need to make changes to my program, is what happens after they graduate from it. I can't tell while they're here because the point of my program is a transfer program. And Tim has worked to get us that kind of information. So you can actually get that from him too. All right, well, we are about out of time here. And I need to hit the road and get to Philadelphia today. So, Robin, thank you for coming.
Thank you and safe travels.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in person. Thank you for watching this recording at regular speed or 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed. But I hope all of you learned a little bit about data, and really check out Parnell's book. It really is very helpful, and I think will give you a much better context about how to use data in your work here at the college and more broadly in your careers. Have a good one, everybody.